Good Friday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Harapsky. Let's get straight to your headlines. A look at our nation's capital right now, where the Republican-controlled Senate is set to vote this afternoon on a short-term funding bill to avoid a government shutdown at midnight tonight. If enough Democrats join Republicans and the bill gets 60 votes, the measure funding the government for 6 months would move to a final vote. This week, the top Democrat in the Senate, New York Senator Chuck Schumer, said he will vote for the bill to avoid a shutdown while the U.S. hashes out trade disputes with Canada, Mexico, and China. Many Democrats in Congress think he shouldn't vote for it as a protest to Republicans and the White House. For the first time in more than a decade, Canada has a new leader. Prime Minister Mark Carney, sworn in this morning, taking the reins as a trade war with the country's closest trading partner, the United States, heats up. Carney could hold the title of Prime Minister for just a few weeks. He's expected to call an election before the 24th of March. That's when Canadian Parliament gets back to work. That means Canadians could head to the polls to a vote for a new Prime Minister in April or early May. This afternoon, we just heard from Gophers Athletic Director Mark Coyle, who fired men's basketball coach Ben Johnson after the team lost to Northwestern on Wednesday. Coyle saying the school is acting quickly to get a new coach in.
We're trying to be very efficient in our goals to move quickly as possible. So those young men on that team right now who are returning next year have a chance to spend time with that coach and also have a chance to talk to them about institutional NIL and how our collective works. Our ideal candidate will be somebody who has experience in this landscapes, understands the changing landscape. And as I mentioned earlier, when the judge issues her final ruling regarding the House settlement, that's when things really start to pick up and we get more clarity and what it's going to look like as we move forward. So again, we want somebody who's on top of that.
Johnson, with just one winning season in his 4 years with the Gophers, was a tough ride this season, with Johnson losing 8 players to the transfer portal following success last season. Take a look at your screen right now. Today, Minnesota lawmakers announcing a new push to rethink drunk driving laws in Minnesota, and they're doing it at the Park Tavern in St. Louis Park. That's where 6 months ago an alleged drunk driver drove his vehicle into the restaurant patio, killing 2 people and injuring 9 others. The new push has a big focus on repeat drunk drivers. It's a direct tie back to that deadly crash that happened at the tavern in September. Court records show the suspect had 5 prior drunk driving convictions. This bill would allow authorities to look 20 years back in your record for past drunk driving incidents when determining your license suspension. Right now, that window's 10 years. The bill also modifies how long a repeat offender has to drive with an ignition interlock. Plus, all ignition interlock users will be required to complete a rehab program before they get their license back. This bill was introduced in committee this past Monday. Right now, it's scheduled to be heard this coming Monday at 1 p.m. Right now, astronauts Bush Wilmore and Sonny Williams hoping their next shot at coming back to Earth doesn't get delayed again. Their days-long mission last summer has turned into a 9+ month mission on the International Space Station. The next attempt to go up and get them is happening tonight. Hopefully at about 6:03 is when it's scheduled to launch. NBC's Tom Costello is at Kennedy Space Center with those details.
Yeah, good day. Beautiful weather here at the Kennedy Space Center for a launch today, 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time. And as you know, this launch was supposed to go 2 days ago, but they had a problem with a ground clamp that literally holds the rocket to the ground. They resolved the issue since then, and they think they're ready to go for this evening. On board this rocket, Crew 10, we have 2 American astronauts, 1 cosmonaut and 1 Japanese astronaut, headed for their normal 6-month rotation on the space station. And when they get there, that allows Crew 9 to come home. You might think of this as a shift change. It's not an emergency rescue mission of any sort. This is a normal shift change, and that allows Crew 9 with Butch and Sonny to return back to Earth. They have been there, as you know, since last June when they went up on a 10-day mission, but that 10-day mission turned into 9 months because of concern about, of course, their Boeing Starliner spaceship. Coming back on a SpaceX rocket, we expect that could happen as soon as next week, and then they would splash down either in the Gulf or off the Atlantic. So all eyes on the launch this evening, 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time. Back to you.
I know it's hard to believe, but another commercial airplane emergency. Intense video today showing an American Airlines plane catching fire upon making an emergency landing at Denver International Airport, forcing dozens on board to evacuate on the aircraft's wing. We're now hearing from some of those passengers who were on board.
As soon as the plane landed, it was a very abrupt landing. Everyone started screaming and you heard fire. I looked out the window. The window started. There was flames out of the window where I was looking out.
We landed and it was fine. Everything was fine. But then the minute we landed, it was like smoke started filling the cabin and people started kind of screaming and pushing and jumping up and yelling. And there were people saying, "Don't push, don't push."
Now crews are trying to figure out what exactly happened and trying to prevent it from happening again. Steve Patterson in Denver with the latest.
Yeah, the latest comes from the Denver Fire Department saying that 12 out of 178 people on board that plane taken to a local hospital, treated for minor injuries. This is a Boeing 737-800. It was going from Colorado Springs en route to Dallas-Fort Worth. It had to be diverted here to Denver after the FAA says the crew reported a rumbling vibration coming from the engine, landed here in Denver. One of the engines exploding, engulfing into flames on the tarmac, and that's where you see those horrific images. People fanning out on the edges of the wing of the plane, that black smoke billowing from the engine, those ground crews scrambling to the plane with ladders, with slides, trying to evacuate everybody on board. Thankfully, they did. American Airlines lauding the protocols that were followed to safely land the plane and to get everybody off board. Meanwhile, the FAA says it will investigate, as this is just another situation in a string of these airline incidents. This one, everybody breathing a sigh of relief. It could have been far worse. Back to you.
New today, the FAA is permanently restricting non-essential helicopter operations around Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport in the D.C. area. That's where an Army Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines regional jet collided in January, killing 67 people. It's the deadliest aviation accident in the U.S. in nearly 2 decades. The changes come following the National Transportation Safety Board's urgent recommendations to make changes at that airport. The FAA also closing a helicopter route along the stretch of the Potomac River there. These changes at Reagan may be just the beginning. FAA officials are also analyzing other airports with a high volume of helicopters and planes. Well, several big names are throwing in their names into the hats to be possibly TikTok's next owner. It's all still very much in limbo with that April 5th deadline around the corner. Some bidders now trying to make their case to the public as well. Stephen Romo has the story.
The clock is ticking on TikTok, with President Trump's 75-day pause on banning the app set to end within a month. The president seems optimistic, saying he's working with multiple bidders.
Do you think there's going to be a deal on TikTok soon?
There could be. We're dealing with 4 different groups, and a lot of people want it, and it's up to me.
It's not clear exactly who those 4 groups are, but bidders are clamoring for attention. Employer.com CEO Jesse Tinsley, a former firefighter, is leading one high-profile group to buy the social media app. In a recent op-ed for Fox News, Tinsley highlighted how important TikTok is for Main Street, calling it a lifeline for small businesses, adding how it can build a customer base for real people with real dreams building real businesses.
I think American control, whether that's us or another party, I think that's paramount.
Big names like YouTube personality Mr. Beast joining that group bid.
We have an offer ready for you.
They recently said the offer is, quote, north of $30 billion in cash. Another bidder with a vision, real estate billionaire Frank McCourt, leading what he calls the people's bid.
My view is that when ByteDance understands that they can transact without selling the algorithm, I think their view is going to be totally different.
If he's successful, he says TikTok would not use any Chinese technology, instead being run on his nonprofit's platform, allowing users to have more control over their data. Reddit founder Alexis Ohanian has joined that bid. Another offer led by Wyoming wealth management billionaire Reed Rasner, presenting a plan to have U.S. users buy into the platform as founding members.
This is about the American people, and this is about bringing TikTok to America. and I'm going to fight for that day in and day out.
Rasner says his offer is around $47.5 billion and that the Trump administration has reviewed it. But the big question, will TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance be swayed to sell?
Will China agree to sell it?
I think that's obviously something that's out of our hands. We've obviously put together a very, very strong offer.
Tariff tensions also escalating between the Trump administration and the Chinese government. Frank McCourt telling Reuters just last week ByteDance hasn't retained a banker or even set a valuation. President Trump says he'd be open to the U.S. only owning 50% of TikTok and extending the ban deadline again if needed.
Hopefully China will approve of the deal, but they're going to play a role.
Perhaps acknowledging all the cards China holds as this TikTok tug of war drags on.
Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.